Today, we're diving deep into the incredible four-decade journey of one of America's most iconic bands, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. You see, right from the get-go, they were way more than just a band. They were rebels, they were poets, and they were the underdogs who ended up writing the soundtrack for an entire generation. Their story? It's not just about rock and roll. It's a true American story of grit, standing your ground, and just plain perseverance. So let's set the scene. It's Gainesville, Florida, 1976. That's where the band officially comes together, and the original lineup was just a perfect storm of talent. You had Tom Petty on vocals, the amazing Mike Campbell on lead guitar, Benmont Tench on keyboards, Stan Lynch on drums, and Ron Blair holding it down on bass. Now, Tom Petty himself always insisted, hey, we're just a rock and roll band. Simple as that. But their music, with its focus on the lives and struggles of everyday people, it became this huge cornerstone of what everybody started calling heartland rock. It put them right alongside legends like Bruce Springsteen and Bob Seger. So, how did this legendary group even get started? Well, their story doesn't begin in some fancy LA studio. Nope. It begins in the humid garages and tiny clubs of Gainesville, Florida. Yeah, their path to stardom was anything but a straight line. It all started with a band called Mudcrutch. They were a local hit in Florida, so they packed up and moved to LA, chasing that big record deal. But their first single completely flopped, and the band just fell apart. But Tom Petty, he wasn't going to give up. In 1976, he got Campbell and Tench back from the old band, added Lynch and Blair, and just like that, the Heartbreakers literally rose from the ashes. And believe me, those early days were a struggle. Their first album was basically collecting dust on shelves in America. But then, something totally unexpected happened. They played on this British TV show called Top of the Pops, and they just blew up in the UK. All that success overseas is what finally made radio stations back home start paying attention. You'd think getting a hit would make things easier, right? Nope. In fact, it led to some of the biggest fights of their entire career, battles that would really define their legacy of always standing up for their music and their fans. Get this, in 1979, their record label gets sold to this huge corporation, MCA, and they basically try to sell the band along with the office furniture. Petty was having none of it. He refused to be treated like property. So what does he do? He makes this incredibly bold move. He risks everything by filing for bankruptcy, just as a legal tactic to get out of his contract. I mean, at a time when artists were just commodities, this was a massive stand for creative freedom. And you know what? He won. And he didn't stop there. He did it again in 1981. MCA wanted to sell their new album, Hard Promises, for what they called superstar pricing, $9.98, which was a whole dollar more than the standard price. And Petty was like, no way. We are not ripping off our fans. He actually threatened to not even release the album. The public got behind him, and the record company had to back down. The album sold for the standard $8.98. So you can imagine, this kind of integrity, it earns you a ton of respect. In the mid-'80s, they got the invitation of a lifetime to be Bob Dylan's backing band on a world tour. I mean, think about it. Bob Dylan asks you to be his band. That's the ultimate seal of approval, and it cemented their status as one of the best live acts on the planet. And the crazy part is, through all these fights, all the touring, the well of incredible songs never, ever ran dry. Their consistency over the decades is it's almost unheard of in rock history. I mean, the list is just iconic. Hit after hit after hit. Breakdown, American Girl, Refugee, The Waiting, Learning to Fly, Mary Jane's Last Dance. I could go on all day. Every single one is a classic, a snapshot of a moment, but somehow totally timeless. This is the foundation of their legacy. Of course, over 40 years, things are gonna change. A band is like a family, and sometimes people move on. Bassist Ron Blair left in '82 and was replaced by Howie Epstein. Then drummer Stan Lynch left in '94 and Steve Ferrone came in. But through it all, that core of Petty, Campbell, and Tench, they kept the heart and soul of the Heartbreakers alive. And yeah, like any family, there was some drama inside the band too. In 1989, Petty put out his solo album Full Moon Fever, the one with Free Fallin', and it was a massive, massive hit. But some of the other Heartbreakers they weren't exactly thrilled. Even though guys like Mike Campbell played all over the record, that decision to step out alone, it definitely caused some tension. But through it all, they stuck together. Just look at these two photos, nearly 40 years apart, and that core partnership is still right there. They went from these young kids in Gainesville to absolute elder statesmen of rock. But that connection, especially between Petty and Campbell, it never ever faded. And that brings us to the final chapter of their story. It's a chapter of celebration, but also a really sudden and tragic end. 40 years. To celebrate, in 2017, the band hit the road for this massive anniversary tour, a celebration of an incredible, uncompromised run as one of America's greatest rock bands. And what a tour it was. It was a victory lap, really, for a band that had given us so much. It all ended on September 25th, 2017, with a final show right in their adopted hometown at the Hollywood Bowl. And the very last song they ever played together, you couldn't write it any better. It was American Girl. What's really chilling is that just days before he passed away, in his final interview, he said this. He said the Heartbreakers would probably just call it quits if one of them died or got too sick to play. He knew the chemistry was everything, that it was a brotherhood that just couldn't exist if a piece went missing. And then, a week later, just 1 week after that incredible final show, the news broke that stunned the entire music world. Tom Petty died of a cardiac arrest. He was 66 years old. And just as he had predicted, the Heartbreakers' 40-year journey came to an end. But a legacy like that, it doesn't just end. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they got their star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but more than that, their music is still everywhere. It's a timeless testament to a band that never compromised, and always put the music and their fans first. So we'll leave you with this thought. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers wrote so many anthems about the American dream, the good, the bad, and everything in between. When you look back at that incredible catalog of theirs, what is the one song that really defines the American experience for you?